We are back, folks. We are back. There's going to be a lot of giggles, a lot of interruptions, and a lot of good times coming on this episode. I got Kristina Bartold in the house, social media expert. Kristina, what's up?
Hello. Oh my gosh, social media expert. Chris called me that too. Can I call myself that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it just rolled off the tongue. So it felt right to me. So I hope it feels good to you.
Well, I call you like the book expert, book guru. So I feel like it's all good.
Yeah, whatever like descriptor we want to use for each other, let's do it, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Positive descriptors are always a good thing. So, all right, I want to get into this. You got so much great knowledge about so many different things. Let's start here though, just so that people know a little bit about how you built up such an incredible social media agency and why you did it.
Yeah.
So, give us a little bit of the backstory, and then I want to dig into some very tactical things on this episode.
Yeah, so I'll keep it short and sweet, but basically I have always been fascinated by social media. It always has come so easily to me, and it's like maybe my gifting of how to build community online. So for the last 10 years, I've been doing social media as a side hustle. I had a 9 to 5 job I loved. I did my master's degree in leadership. I just was really, really like doing it for fun, and I found it really enjoyable. And then during COVID, I started doing some leadership consulting. And while I was doing that, I did all of my sales on social. And all of my clients were like, how did you sell? And I would then be teaching them how to do email marketing. I would teach them how to do social. I would teach them how to do all these things. And that's how the social snippet was born with my business partner was can't make a graphic. Everything's crooked. I needed her to help me. But everything from there was about how do we help business owners build community online? So in 2021, Maria and I got together. We said, okay, what if we just took on a few clients for fun? And then it's been kind of, yeah, like gangbuster since. Like it's been nuts. We started with 1, 2, 3 clients, and now we're up to 85, 50 on the social side, and then 35 on the podcasting side. And what we're so passionate about is teaching people how to build community online. And no matter what their niche is or niche, whatever your niche is, we want to help people be able to show up for their ideal client and be able to sell to them.
Okay, this is good stuff. I want to dig into you a little bit, right? You have a larger than life personality. You have so much energy and so much like excitement, okay? When you think of social media, okay, and you think of your personality, do you think that you have an advantage because of that? Or do you think that because we have similar personalities in that we're like very out there, right? Or do you think that it's not an advantage for social media, or it doesn't even matter and it just is what it is and there's no positive or negative connotation to it?
Okay, I've never been asked that before. And earlier, Jake was like, I have some questions prepped for you. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be those basic questions. Like which ones, Instagram or LinkedIn? And oh, goodness.
Yeah, this one wasn't even prepped. This is a real moment question.
All right. I'm in for it. No, so do I think I have an advantage by being extroverted? I would say maybe because I do think people buy from people's energy. And it is easier for me to show energy than someone else. So even my business partner, Maria, she's incredible, but she's a bit of a quieter force. So when she shows up, it's very confident, but it has a different energy behind it than when me. Today I just got on my Instagram stories. I was like, guys, do I buy a 360 photo booth? Like, do I do this? And like people are voting on if I buy this 360 photo booth. Stay tuned. And it's so interesting because people are like kind of getting excited about it because I'm bringing that enthusiasm. But I think regardless if you're introverted or you're extrovert, all that matters is that when you're showing up, you're showing up about something that you like. So if you're going on there and you're like Jake, it'd be like if you're like, I don't really actually care about books, and I don't actually think books are a transformation. And you're going on there, you're like, buy a book. You guys should write books because books are good. Like there's a different energy behind that. That even if you're quieter and you're like, hey, this book transformed my life. This is my before and my after from having a book and being able to get into rooms I've never been able to get into and connect with people I've never been able to connect with because of this book. So I think it's really about that storytelling aspect. And I think regardless of personality, you can do it. Does it come easier to some? Sure. But that's what social media really is. It's about that story, and you're
Yep.
bringing people along with you on a journey.
Okay, so if you go cross platforms, right?
Yeah.
If you go cross platforms, if you even just are on one platform trying to use multiple of the features there, okay, how do you encourage people to build that community based on them? And even more specifically, okay, I'm going to narrow this down. Let's talk about the content to build that community. How much of it should be business content?
Yeah.
And how much of it should be personal content? Or does it not matter today? Because I see people that are like, stay in your lane, one niche, talk about that only, and it doesn't matter how many followers you have. And then you have
Mhm.
other people who are like, social media is just, I share everything, business, good, bad, personal life. What do you find is the best balance when trying to build community?
Yeah, so I think it's about thinking about the features of each platform in a different way. So, for example, when we're thinking about Instagram, which I think is like the most popular one that like I work with, but I can talk about any of these platforms. But really, when we're talking about it, like I one time was blasted in a reel because I said that people shouldn't post pictures of their dinner on their feed. And people were like, "How dare you tell me like not to post this?" And I'm like, because unless you're a chef, people need to know what you're doing. So Instagram's your handshake, right? You want people to go to your profile and be able to instantly know, okay, Jake's gonna help me take an idea and make it a bestseller. It must be about a book, right? Like you really want to make sure that people know what you're doing. And so when that comes up, it's often what times what people will do is they'll post a lot of family photos, they'll post a lot of things that are kind of confusing on the feed. And then it dilutes your message, it dilutes some of the great stuff you're doing. So I think personal content is so important. People love to see my dog Patrick, they love to see my husband. Yesterday I posted my husband in a red light mask, but that stuff is for the stories. And really think of your stories as where you're cultivating your community. That's where your inner circle is. And I would use reels as ways to attract new people.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let me ask you this though. So if I look at my social media, right, and I look at, let's say, Instagram, some of the things that perform really well for me
Mhm.
are massive announcements,
Yep.
right? Or anything related to my fiance.
Yep.
Okay. Like any wedding update, any engagement update, like those go bonkers. And what I see is that following that, and these are feed posts, following that, I'm getting a large influx of eyeballs
Yep.
across the board because it seems like it's sparking engagement. What are your thoughts though on leveraging that type of content, like that personal content, to get to increase your engagement over your business content? Because not everyone's interested in liking or commenting
Yep.
on all your business posts, but then coupling that with some form of business
Yep.
call to action on the back end in your stories or on your next post when you know your eyeballs have increased. What is that just made up in my mind, or is this like, is there like science to this?
No, there's science to it, right? Because the thing is that in Instagram and in particular, but LinkedIn, everything, they're prioritizing like relationship, right? So they prioritize like when someone likes your stuff, you start to show up more for them. So we've all seen that person who comes up in their little bubbles first on our stories, and we're like, why is that person there? It's because you talk about them, you talk with them, you're interacting with them, you creep them. That's why they're there. So for you, if people are engaging with you, even on something really personal, and I'm not saying don't ever post anything personal, but I'm just saying people go a little ham and then they're like, why don't people know what I'm doing? And I'm like, well, it's because there's 5 pictures of your dog there. Like your dog's so cute, but you're not selling dogs. So you want it to be very clear what you're doing. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And also there's ways to take personal messages and tie them into business. Right? Like you could talk about your fiance and like something you guys learned together, or like how books have impacted you, or the best books you guys have read. Like there's so many things that you can do. And we've talked about this before, but announcements, right? Where people want to be part of the journey with you. That's why they
Yeah.
like them. So the why people love like when Jake gets his clients on like New York Times Square, like and he gets them up there. The reason why people love that is it's celebratory, and it allows them to either celebrate you or see themselves in you. And so if we
Mhm.
can leverage that, that's great. But what I will say is that often people will post things that will get a lot of engagement from their following. So something like a picture with your fiance or something like that. Likes aren't dollars in the bank. And so it's not that helpful if you get a ton of likes. So whenever I post me and my husband in like on Instagram, people love it. People love, love, love it. I'm like, are any of you gonna give me some money? Like, are any of you like, no, they're not. They just like whatever about my relationship. So I think figuring out the balance of like not letting likes be your determinant of what success is, but actually looking at what success, like success leaves clues. So looking at like, okay, great. When I post this and then afterwards I couple it with some business content, I get inquiries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting, right? Like
Mm.
you start to look at those things and build a narrative of what social looks like for you.
All right, let's stay on Instagram for the sake of this conversation, just because I know that's where a lot of your clients are. And I think everyone
Yeah.
that's listening here, Instagram's a great platform for a lot of people. And if you don't like Instagram, well, this will probably change your mind. Okay. So, if we're on Instagram, okay, and your biggest goal, you work with 85 people, about 50 people right now on the social
Yeah.
media side. And Instagram's a big platform, and your goal is to help drive community. Now, community can mean a variety of different things,
Yeah.
right? Do you have, when you're working with somebody and they want to build community, The goal is to build community to drive sales.
Mhm.
What types of things are you really focusing on when it comes to metrics, insights, KPIs in terms of building the community? Are you looking at follower growth? Are you
Yep.
looking at amount of posts created? What are some of the metrics that you're looking at and that you're encouraging to people to see for growth?
Yeah, so I've seen people use almost anything as a metric, and I think it's really about figuring out what works in your business. But for me, what I look for is I look for leads from social. And we know that social, like we need to see something in the stats up. It's like 14 times before making a purchasing choice. So someone might be like, "Oh my gosh, I want to write a book." They follow Jake on Instagram. Then they're seeing his great Instagram reels. They're like, "Great, awesome." They start to listen to his podcast. Great. Now they see him on LinkedIn. Oh my gosh, they just saw him with his their favorite influencer. Awesome. Oh, you mastermind with this person. Great. It's that constant reinforcement of what you do. So I think gone are the days where people see something one time and they're like, oh, great. Like Jake's going to help me write a book. I'm going to buy that today and we're done. Right. Like that happens, but I would say it's more rare. And so what I would say is really you want to be figuring out what is engaging content. So what is getting your ideal clients to comment, respond to you, like message you, say something, what's getting shares, what's like, those are the things I would look at because engagement's one of those things on the platform that's very hard in the analytics. You're like, oh, my engagement's up 200%. We had a client, it was up something like 40,000% when we started working with them. They hadn't posted in 2 years. That's reasonable. Like, right? Like that's reasonable. And I could have taken that stat and been like, look, guys, like look at our great work. But that's not really the reality of the situation. So I think what we need to remember is that we have a banger reel that could blow up our engagement. So there's nothing like really seeing your ideal clients talk to you and your ideal clients actually connect. And that's actually what I would measure the most is like, how many conversations are you having?
So if we're driving conversations,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that I feel like social media is like a hotbed for just people having contradictory opinions,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But like in your mind, like if we're trying to do this and our goal is to get leads from social media, right?
Mhm.
And a lead is somebody raising their hand, expressing interest to work with you, right? It's
Yep.
they're engaging, they're commenting, they're DMing you, whatever, right?
Buying your book, buying your
But
coaching program. Yeah.
so let's evaluate this because if we're trying to get leads, what types of call to action and how often do you encourage specific calls to actions for people when they're posting with the goal of getting leads from their community?
Yeah. I think because we know that things take so much longer to warm up for people, it's really important for us not to be like, buy your book, like get your book, buy my book. It's time to buy my book. Like it's like people know, right? So what we want to be doing is creating content that actually invokes that feeling from them without you having to almost say it. So whether that be like a call to action, being like, I'm just using authors for an example, obviously, Jake, because of your audience, but someone sharing a piece of their book and sharing, and then it's kind of like that TBD, like, what else is there, like that next step, or, maybe they have a 3-step process that they're sharing in their book and they share one of the 3 steps. And it's like, want to learn more, like drop the word book below and then you DM them the link. Or you start the conversation. I've also seen people also ask questions that then people respond, and then you send like a voice note or something. It depends on what season of business you're in too. Like sometimes you have more time for things than other things. So when you're like in a launch period for a book, like you're all in on your book, you're probably not gonna be voice noting people 24/7 trying to get them to buy it. So you are gonna be like probably doing some bigger activities. But later when you're selling more expensive programs, or maybe you have something a little bit more, that is a higher ticket, then you might be willing to put in a little bit more personal legwork for the sale. So I would say for calls to action, I wouldn't always say, buy my book or whatever that looks like, but I would actually really encourage people to get deeper into your world. So
Mm.
whether that be getting their email address so that you can get them on an email list. I always say this for people, and I'm sure you say this all the time too, Jake, but like when I have friends who are thinking about launching books, I'm like, where's your email list? Like these are the people that are going to be buying from you. So like your Instagram following, sure, people will buy, sure, people will share. You can do giveaways. That's some great calls to action there. But like getting people on your email list so you can sell to them kind of repeatedly. Those are some of the things that I would say would be some of the calls to action I would make.
I like it. I like it. What types of this is like a very like basic tactical question, but I want to get these out of the way and then I want to go into some like more philosophical social media questions.
I love it.
What are your favorite tools and automations when it comes and schedulers when it comes to social media? And do those positively or negatively impact potential community growth and engagement?
Yes. So this is a complicated one for sure. But and why I say that is because people have all these different opinions about this. And my opinion is like, I was a business owner before I was a marketer. So it was like, I did things to be easy. I had a 9 to 5. I didn't have time to be like 24/7 on Instagram. You know, Jake, you and I were just talking about this where I had asked you a question. You're like, I don't even look at that because I like can't. Like, I don't have time for that. Right. So we all have to make choices. And so if we are scheduling content, I love Later. Later is an awesome tool. It allows you to cross post across all the platforms. And it's a partner to Instagram and TikTok. So no matter what, you aren't penalized for it. I am not 100% sure that all the other ones penalize you. This is all I know is that Later does not. So I don't want to say like Metricool is going to penalize people. Like I'm not, I don't know. I don't know. But I know that Later has a specific relationship with these platforms. So that's really important. And then I would say in terms of really like navigating that, can you schedule, should you schedule like content? I think it's really about your goals. Should you schedule content? Sure, I schedule content all the time for the social snippet. But I also go on the account and I interact with people. And that is key. Because if you're just going to schedule content to schedule it and you're not going to do any interaction, it's not even worth scheduling. It's not going to come up for people. People aren't going to see it because Instagram prioritizes people who are on the apps. So does LinkedIn. Every time I schedule a LinkedIn post on the app, I swear it gets probably 10% of the engagement of me actually posting it and staying on and commenting.
Hmm.
And if you start to not respond to comments and stuff like that too, that you also get kind of a level of penalty there as well. So you need to be spending some time in the app as well to be able to nurture those relationships. It can't just be you posting and ghosting. That's really how we can make the most impact.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny hearing you talk about this because obviously you're so ingrained and entrenched into the social media world. And like for me, we have a great social media plan. My team helps me out. We schedule all the stuff. We do a week's worth of content in advance. Like it's beautiful. And I of course go on there and I engage. But it's interesting hearing your perspective of some of these things because I haven't put as much energy towards understanding it as much as I used to. And so it's really cool to hear you kind of talk about that, which kind of leads me to my next like question around this is like when we're talking about social media and being authentic,
Mm-hmm.
there are people on social media, and again, everyone's different. There are people on social media though that tell you too much and it can turn you away in a way that basically is like, you know what? Like I appreciate them sharing everything, but I don't believe, due to what they've shared, I no longer believe them to be as credible or as legitimate as
Mm-hmm.
they said. And then there's other people who truly just own their shit and they do it in a way that you're like, damn, yes,
Yes.
I believe you even more. Where's that fine line of sharing too much and being authentic? You are, but you're sharing too much versus being authentic and doing it right, and then avoiding being too vulnerable, but it doesn't hurt you because you're not potentially putting people to see a weakness. And not saying that
Yes.
vulnerability is weakness. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
But in terms of our mind, there's a way to navigate this and dance with it. And so I'm
Yeah.
curious what your thoughts are in front of those ways.
So earlier we were talking about woo woo, and you were like, I only have one woo. I have almost like less than one woo. I always am woo adjacent to all these people around me. And I would say if I'm like a more like feeling perspective, somebody who is that authentic online doesn't care that you're not a fit for them. Because that person's going to say, in my experience, I've had clients where I'm like, wouldn't have said that. I would not have said that. And they're like, well, then that person doesn't resonate with me, then they're not going to be the right fit to work
Mm-hmm.
with me. And
Mm.
so if that person's not going to like, and the truth is if that person's crying on an Instagram story, they might cry in your coaching call. If that person is telling you like a wild belief that you're like, oh, that really doesn't resonate with me, that is what they believe them, right? Like, and that's fine. And they're going to have people who like, and I've had this too, where I've thought about working with coaches. And I'm like, they might just be too spiritual for me. Like, and that's okay. That's just not, I'm a tactical woman. I like you and I both, like we like this type of work because it's tactical. And I'm like, I actually don't want to do breath work before this. And that's okay. But so you're not my type of person. So I think in the authentic world, like it's really interesting because I almost think, I don't know if this is answering your question, Jake, but like it's even like this understanding, like this like undercover millionaire thing. How many business owners there are out there who are doing, even in our mastermind, who are doing so well, who don't have an Instagram? Like I can think of people in our mastermind who I'm like, you would kill it on social, on LinkedIn, on something, and they're like, I've never needed it. So I think it's really about finding the what feels authentic for you, and asking yourself the question of like, what do you want your ideal clients to see in you? What do you want them to know about you? And I think there's also a level of like power and sometimes holding some of your cards to your chest from us like I do from the space of like a bit of boundaries. Because on social, it's so easy to be social and it's so easy to like share a lot. Um, but I also know like for my own, like, you're not friends with your followers. And so I think knowing that like boundary of like you want to have relationships with them, but they don't need, not everyone's gonna be your friend. Some of these people are gonna be your clients, some won't. I think is important. So I don't know. It's a tough balance.
Yeah, it really is, because you want to show people, but there's some things you don't want to show people. And let me
Yeah.
take you on the opposite side of this question,
Okay.
which is the claims we're seeing made on social media in today's world. And it's social media, we're building community, and we're trying to show people that we are the person for them to hire, right? Like
Yeah.
for a lot of us. So a lot of people you see will make certain claims, right? And then you have the people that are saying their claim and then showing you a bank statement, but that bank statement's from like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Or they're saying we run a 8-figure business, but their profit margins are 2%.
Yeah.
Where what do you find what do you find feels good to you and your clients when it comes to making claims from a marketing perspective,
Hmm.
but also being true in those claims so you're not misleading people, but you're also not missing out on opportunity because you are special?
Yeah. Another balance is it's so hard, Jake, because there's a level of authority. I'll give you a perfect example. One of my clients is amazing. She's a close friend as well, and has become a close friend. And she sold a 7-figure business and never talked about it. And was trying to sell business coaching. And I was like, you need to tell people you sold a 7-figure business. Like that's core to your messaging and your authority. And she was like, I like to be humble. Like that's not how I want to show up. Like that's not what I'm going to lead with. And then we added in her bio, we made some adjustments, and she saw a change in her business. So it's
Mm.
just interesting that it's like we are looking for people who are 1 step, 5 step, 10 steps ahead of us. And that credibility is really hard because even like I've seen this with people before where they're like, I made my first million on a $37 product. You did that 10 years ago. That's a totally different thing. That's like the internet's completely different now. Like you're not going to be making your first million on a $37 product, like selling that one time, right? So it's just, I think it's really important for us to be fact checking people but also navigating that level of authority of like what we're comfortable with. And even I really struggle with that too, where I'm like, I've served hundreds of businesses. I've been in social for 10 years. Like, we've made millions in our business. Like, you have too. Like, like we have these amazing businesses that we're so proud of. But at the same time, it's like, I want to be known for like what I can do for that person and like how I can show up for them. So it's so tough. And I would say like if I was to recommend it to anyone, it's like finding that balance of yourself where you feel like you can share something about your business that feels maybe a bit vulnerable and that level of authority is there. But it's hard.
So let me dig in here on this because I agree. And like I sometimes struggle to say certain things, right?
Yeah.
But I know saying those things, if done properly, will make people see why a book has to happen, right?
Yes.
But sometimes I hesitate on sharing some of these certain things or some of the experiences I've had because of the book. And so I go very topical or I repeat similar ones more than I share new ones.
Yeah.
And it's great, but like I'll give you an example of something for us. So we had a great month the month prior to us recording this. Now, I don't love to talk about on social media how much money we did on in that month. But if I were to say how much, and also how you word that too,
Yeah.
because it wasn't all cash collected in the bank, it was a projected sales volume based on our client contracts. But it was one of those things where I'm like, if I were to tell people that because I wrote a book, I made that our company did this much in revenue this month,
Hmm.
people could see that as holy crap. Like he wrote a $5 book and they did this much in projected sales for the month.
Yeah.
How would you, if you were in my position, how would you suggest bringing that up in a way that isn't egotistical and in a way that also portrays like what's possible versus saying, look how great I am?
Yeah. So you and I have the same problem, which is that we run a business that serves businesses. So in a way, you going and being like, "Hey, I've made this much from selling a book or from writing a book." Yes, that's from writing a book, but that isn't the business that made that money, right?
But if they're reading my book and then signing up to work with us because they read
Yes.
the book, that is a direct correlation, which is what
Yes,
happens to most of our people.
totally. But you didn't make that on book sales.
No, correct. And I would
Right.
never say we made this on
Yeah.
book sales. Yeah.
So for me, I think I'm an ideal client for you. I have the same problem. Like I'm like, I didn't make this money on Instagram. But this started from me posting on Instagram. All of this started from me posting on social. And so it's the same thing where it's like, and then people are like, well, that's easy for you to say because you teach people how to write books. And or that's easy for you to say because you want my money for social. But the difference, I think, for you, Jake, is that's not what I would actually focus on. Like what I would focus on is all the new people who just decided to write books with you. Like, hey, we had, let's say it was 15. I'm just going to make up a number. We had 15 people join our program this month. And these 15 people, this is like what they're going to look forward to. Here's the process. You're taking people through that journey where they're going to say, oh, I have FOMO because I didn't make that investment. I have FOMO because I wanted to write a book and I didn't I didn't get it started. A lot of people for books, especially, it's on their heart for a long time. Like, you and I have been talking about this a lot where I'm like, I keep sending people who want to write books to you because they'll be like, oh, I think I want to do this. And I'm like, it sounds like you want to write a book. Go talk to Jake. And they're like, I've wanted to write a book for 5 years and I didn't know the first step. I'm like, Jake's going to tell you the first step. That's great. So I think the way I would change that is I would make it about your clients. And really, and I think all of us do this. We go, and this is what I think is the problem with the online world is like, I made $10 million this year doing this. It's like, oh, that's not really, that doesn't feel attainable for me. But when somebody says, I started posting on social media and I was able, after my first 100 followers, this was my impact. This is like, you go to where your client is. And so I think for you, Jake, saying like one, talking about the people who have invested with you, but two, I think you would be better off actually not even talking about your sales, and you would be better off talking about, which you do a great job of, but always room for improvement for everyone. Talking about once these books are launched, what happened to them? So, our friend Leah, who launched her book with you, she's in Times Square. She's using this book as huge, operation for her for lead gen. Every event I go to where Leah is, I got a copy of this book. I can't take any more of these books. Last time she gave one, I was like, I can't take this. I have no more room on the bookshelf. But what's so great about that is she's giving this out. All these new people are reading it. And then she's landing all this new work. That's what you need to be talking about, because you actually shouldn't even be talking about yourself in that situation. You need to be talking about the transformation that you provide. And that's actually the easiest way to do it because it's humble. It's a humble brag. You're not saying, look at me, I wrote this book for her.
Yeah.
You're saying, look at Leah, who worked with me, who I was able to help transform her business by her putting a book out.
Yeah, I just took some great notes there too. I like that. I like that a lot. I think it's great too, because while people want to make money, right? And you're in the business to helping people make money. Like that we're both in the business. You do it through social, I do it through books. But at the end of the day, the result's the same. Is this vehicle going to make me more money? And am I going to be able to save myself time in the process and ultimately grow my business? How you portray that to others is what's going to help them. And they need to see something that's possible for them. So I really like that. That's very good. I took great notes there. All right. So as we get ready to wrap up here, okay, you are clearly a expert, a guru, a phenomenon, a whatever word you want to put in there, right? A passionate social user and consumer and connoisseur of the trends. Okay, I could just create a byline for you.
I love it. Thank you.
You're doing it. Okay, people are going to listen to this and they're going to want to do it as well. How do they follow you? How do they work with you? How do they join you? Where do they go to see your greatness?
Jake. Well, firstly, I just want to say thank you for having me. I have long respect to you. You know this. I told you when I saw you at the dinner series, it was my goal to crack you in as a friend. So I'm glad we're there. I'm so excited. But yeah, so the best place to find me is on Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm Kristina.Bartold. I spell my name with a K. I'd love to see you over there. Any friend of Jake's is a friend of mine, so feel free to come over. We have our done for you social media and podcast services at thesocialsnippet.com. And then we also have this awesome membership where we teach people how to do their own socials. So if you're like feeling like nervous and you're like how to do my own social, or I need some help, or I need some support, we have an amazing community where we provide tons of templates and a course that takes you from A to Z on all things Instagram. So that's at thesocialbusinessclub.ca, and you can use the code podcast to get your first month for $1.
Whoa.
And Jake, $1 Canadian. So I'm essentially paying Americans.
You're paying our audience. That's wild. As you said that, complete side note, but everyone go follow Kristina and go take advantage of this great offer. As you said, like for $1, that is so much nicer now than it used to be, right? Like think about this. This is just a complete silly side note, and then we'll wrap it up. You used to go to Taco Bell, favorite fast food restaurant. And I would get, you have the dollar item. You have the value items. McDonald's, everyone had the dollar menu. Wendy's, Jack in the Box, 2 tacos for $1, one of the best bangs for your bucks of all time. And you would have all these things, Kristina, okay? Now it's like $2.79 for the same stuff. And you're like, what the hell? But what you just did, it's still $1, right? That's the magical sauce. That's all for you. You are a value person, okay, from the get-go. And I equate you to my favorite meals with what you just offered our listeners today.
Well, I was just going to say, you can either get $1 in this membership, or you can't even get 2 tacos. That's sad. You got to join me.
Exactly. So thank you for coming on the show. I am glad that you are part of my friend circle now, and we'll be friends for a very long time. So for everyone that just listened to this, here's step 1. Go follow Kristina. Just start to see what she's got going on for you. Take advantage of her podcast for $1. We'll link it up on the show notes. And then here's how I want to finish for everyone. This is my challenge to you. We talked about some very strong tactical things today, and we talked a lot about the mindset behind social media. I want you to decide, do you need more of the tactics or do you need more of the mindset? Based on that answer, I want you to take one thing from this episode and apply it directly and immediately to your social media accounts, and then share your results with us. Yeah. That's your challenge for this episode. Kristina, it's been a blast. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. So fun.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.